Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day, thanks in large part to our friends at the VFS School of Game Design. Thank you so much, Vancouver Film School. And speaking of Vancouver Film School, our friend Dams, who this rundown is dedicated to, walked by VFS recently in Gastown at Vancouver and thought of us. Thank you. Thanks for the nice comment. This rundown is all yours. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but Nintendo says they're going to make it easier for people to buy one of their systems, but some people are still not convinced. The company has reiterated their promise to increase their manufacturing output of the Switch before the busy holiday shopping season in order to make it easier to find in stores. That's according to a new statement made by Nintendo to the Wall Street Journal, where they claim that their plan to ramp up production for the holiday period has already been factored into their economic forecast, and they hope that everyone who wants to buy a Switch will be able to do so. They haven't said just how many people actually want to buy a Switch, but Nintendo has previously stated that they expect to sell around 10 million units in their first year, so it looks like that's their guess. Not everyone is convinced, though. The Wall Street Journal claims that their sources predict that Nintendo would actually need to make around 18 million units in their first year in order to meet demand, so those shortages could continue well into 2018 despite Nintendo's promise. This wouldn't be the first time Nintendo has underestimated demand despite pledges to the contrary. Last week, they began pre-orders for the SNES Classic, but despite the fact that they promised it would be easier to get than last year's NES Classic, pre-orders for the new system sold out in a matter of seconds. Hopefully it doesn't take too long for the Switch to become less scarce. Sony wants to keep undercutting the competition in the VR marketplace. With the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive recently getting price cuts, Sony has now followed suit and slashed the price of the PlayStation VR headset. The headset by itself used to cost $550 in Canada, but will now cost $400. Bundles have been discounted as well. The headset with the PlayStation camera, which is required for use, now costs $500 in Canada. Sony says they're doing this to make it easier for players to jump into VR, and this will ensure that the PSVR will continue to be less expensive than its PC counterparts. VR is still an emerging market, with the biggest hurdle being the high cost of entry, so any price cut is a good thing for the industry as a whole. Expect the price of VR to continue to go down as the technology gets easier to make. You don't have to wait until next year for a new look at George R.R. Martin's vast world of Westeros. With the Season 7 finale of Game of Thrones airing last night, HBO has begun rolling out a new series called The Game Revealed, which offers an in-depth behind-the-scenes look at the making of the show. The first episode is available now for free on HBO's YouTube channel and Facebook page, as well as their various online portals, while the remaining 6 episodes will be released on a weekly basis exclusively to HBO subscribers. The network hasn't said how long fans will have to wait for the 8th and final season of the show. We do know that we'll have to wait at least a year, with the producers saying that it will probably premiere in late 2018, but might be pushed back until early 2019. Either way, we can't wait to see how it all ends. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds continues to slay the competition, and it just broke a huge record. For the first time ever, the online Battle Royale game became the #1 most played game on Steam, with more than 877,000 concurrent players. This is a big deal because it dethroned the free-to-play MOBA game Dota 2, which has a huge advantage on Steam, given that it's made by Steam creator Valve. Dota 2 has since retaken the top spot, but this is still an important milestone for Battlegrounds that speaks to the massive popularity of the game. It first launched on Steam Early Access in March and became an instant hit, with players attracted to the idea of everyone fighting to the death inside massive arenas, with the last person standing being crowned the winner. Developer Bluehole has tweaked the game and added new content as they continue with the Early Access program, and they're about to launch a similar version of the game on the Xbox One through Microsoft's Game Preview program. Expect the popularity of Battlegrounds to go up even more when the final finished version of the game lands on the PC and Xbox One later this year. Bluehole has hinted that they might bring the game to other platforms like the PS4 sometime next year. Not one, but 2 new Yakuza games are on the way, so let the Western localization waiting game begin. Sega has announced a pair of new titles in the long-running open-world crime series. First up, with the new game Yakuza Kiwami finally hitting North America tomorrow, Sega has announced a follow-up called Yakuza Kiwami 2. The first Kiwami game is a current-gen remake of the original Yakuza game, so the sequel will be a modern remake of the second game, which was first released on the PS2 in 2006. Yakuza Kiwami is slated to land in Japan this December, and like all the other games, expect to be waiting at least a year for it to find its way to the West. Next up, the second new Yakuza game that Sega has announced is something a little different for the series. It's called Yakuza Online. It is a free-to-play PC and mobile game that will have in-game microtransactions. They haven't released any footage yet, so it's unclear what kind of gameplay it will offer, but we do know that the story will take place after the events of Yakuza 6, with players controlling a new character in the Japanese underworld. Yakuza Online is billed as the first entry in a new Yakuza spin-off series that Sega has dubbed simply New Yakuza Series, so expect more games focusing on new heroes to follow after this one. It's slated to arrive in Japan next year, with no word yet on a Western release. And those aren't the only new games coming from the Yakuza team. Sega has announced an all-new Fist of the North Star fighting game, and it's being made by the same development team behind the Yakuza series. The Japanese title loosely translates to something like Yakuza of the North Star, but despite what you might assume from the title, this isn't a crossover fighting game featuring the North Star and Yakuza characters. Instead, it will tell an original story featuring just the North Star characters, but the combat, exploration, mini-games, and general tone of the game will all be very similar to the Yakuza series. Judging by the trailer, it looks like we'll even have the same kind of quirky humor found in the Yakuza games. There have been many spin-offs and crossover games featuring the North Star characters, but this will be the first one from the Yakuza team, and given the popularity of both franchises, expected to be very big in Japan and everywhere else for that matter. It arrives next year in Japan, although like the Yakuza series, we don't have a Western release window just yet. Ubisoft has something fishy going on at PAX West in Seattle. This year at the massive video game event, Ubisoft will be bringing their open-world shooter Far Cry 5 and allowing attendees to play through a portion of the game's story campaign. After they're done that, they'll be able to spend 10 minutes enjoying an in-game fishing competition because, yes, fishing is one of the many side activities in the game. I've already had a chance to play the same demo and can tell you that the fishing in the game is pretty fun. The person who catches the biggest fish in their group will win a special Far Cry 5 pin, but attendees who don't get a chance to play Far Cry 5 shouldn't worry because there are plenty of other fish in the sea. Dozens of AAA publishers and indie developers will be showing off their latest games at PAX, with many of them playable on the show floor. Originally known as the Penny Arcade Expo, PAX is the biggest game event in North America that's open to the public, and its popularity is one of the main reasons why E3 was forced to begin letting in members of the public earlier this year. PAX is so popular that it's branched out to several different cities, and the one taking place this week in Seattle is officially known as PAX West. It begins on Friday and runs all weekend long. You know that we'll be there, so stay tuned to coverage on our channel. Before we go, we'd like to take a moment to reflect on the career of filmmaker Tobe Hooper, who sadly passed away yesterday at the age of 74. He's best known for directing and co-writing the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was a huge critical and commercial hit when it was first released in 1974. Hooper had actually been a film school professor and documentary cameraman before he decided to make the film, and it was produced on a shoestring budget, with Hooper using a crew of mostly his film school friends to get it made. When it was released, it helped revolutionize the horror genre by giving it a much more gritty and sharper edge, and its central plot about a sadistic cannibal family living in rural Texas can be seen as a subversion of the stereotypical American archetype, which was common in films during the post-Vietnam and Watergate era. Hooper went on to direct several bigger films like Life Force and Poltergeist.
They're here.
After his passing, many filmmakers expressed their love for Hooper and his legacy and have pointed out the lasting influence and impact he will have. Our condolences to Tobe Hooper's friends and family. That wraps up the rundown for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to learn more about game design, visit our pals at VFS.edu. You know, we'll be back again tomorrow with a brand new episode for you. But in the meantime, check out some of the other content we've made, like that Mario and Rabbids review I just put up, and let us know what you think of that, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.